Let me go ahead and bring in our guest for the day, our real life trader, Mr. Stephen King. I'm going to do this. I'm going to promote you to panelist, Stephen. Pop over here. You might have to use that frozen microphone. I'm going to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Are you using the frozen mic?
No, I've got this is a headset now. No, I got rid of the frozen mic. I got a headset plus I have a USB microphone.
Yeah, you sound perfect, man. Let me tell people this story really quick. So guys, Stephen King is another trader that I've met in real life. He lives up in the Connecticut area with his beautiful wife and daughter. He has a son in the Midwest, I believe. And Boise, yep. And so Stephen is a day trader. He swing trades. He is also a contractor for real estate, like doing housing repairs, a high-end housing construction. He's a professional bodybuilder and male model, right, Stephen?
I don't know about that.
The other way you make your money. We hung out this year for the 4th of July, had a 4th of July party at his house. And he also is a blogger and has his own trading website. So we'll talk about that a little bit later today. But I just figured I wanted to email Stephen today, just ask some questions, have some general stock market conversations. How you doing today, my man?
I'm great. Never better. But that's funny. The frozen microphone. That was when we did our first coaching session. And I was scrambling trying to find a microphone that would work on my computer because I didn't have a USB microphone or I didn't have this headset. So that was when I scrambled and I realized that my daughter had a Frozen, from the movie Frozen, microphone. And so I remember I plugged that in and I had that sitting on the desk in front of me. And we, at the time, we were doing a video call. And you're like, is that a Frozen microphone?
Yeah, I'd like the princess.
The
princess. Elsa. Oh, that was funny. That was cool.
That's fantastic.
That was, man. So, Stephen, my man, this is it's been an honor and a treat. This has been a long time coming. I know we chatted about this earlier, and you had some stuff come up. What do you do on the off days when you're not trading like an animal?
So, my days, it's funny. Yesterday, Brad and I were chatting and during the trading room. So, he's a stay-at-home dad. There are a few other stay-at-home dads that, chimed in yesterday. So I'm kind of a stay-at-home dad, but not really. So the situation is my wife works in New York City. And so she leaves the house at, I don't know, 5:30, 5:45 every morning, doesn't get home till 8 o'clock. Because I am self-employed as a general contractor and designer, I have the flexibility to take care of our daughter who is 7. So everything falls on me during the week in terms of getting her up, getting her off to school, picking her up from school. So I have to just schedule my entire workday around school and her activities. So not that I'm home all day, every day, but the days that I'm trading like today, and the days that I'm not, I'm usually at a job site or running in between job sites.
Right on. Heck yeah. So we've talked about the reason I want to interview you too is because we had a real estate discussion in the past, and I know a lot of traders at some point, right? You either do stocks and then you do real estate, or do you real estate and then you do stocks?
Vice versa, yeah.
Yeah. And so I figured maybe we'd just chat 5 to 10 minutes about what's your overall take on the real estate market, flipping houses, investing in real estate, hiring contractors, pros and cons. I mean, you're an expert in that world. You're literally a professional. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I love the idea. I love the concept. As a matter of fact, I'll back up a little bit. So it's got to be longer than 12 years ago. I bought my business back in 2000. So prior to buying my own business, I worked in corporate. And I was in the corporate world for 12 years. And while I was working in the corporate world, my wife and I were buying houses and flipping them. And so we would buy a home, we would live in it for 2 years to avoid the capital gains.
Yep.
And that would be our primary residence. But while we were living in it, I would fix it up, and then as soon as the paint was dry, we'd sell it. And we did that over and over. Drove my wife nuts, but I loved it. It was a great way to make extra money. But then when I bought our business, so we were living in Boston at the time, and then when I bought my business and we moved back to Connecticut where I grew up, that was when we still did we still flipped a couple of houses. But then when we finally bought the house that we're in now, that's when my wife said, enough, no more of that. We got to have a place where we can call home and not be moving every 2 years. So I stopped doing the flipping and just focused on I had a kitchen design firm and general contracting business. So I just focused on that for from then until now. But I'm actually in the process of trying to get back to doing flipping. So I love the idea. I love the concept. And it's a great way to make money. The question is whether you want to flip and do it on a short-term basis and not live in the house, or whether you want to do it on a longer-term basis and live in it and have to suffer through all the the dust and all that. So
yeah,
really just depends on where you are in your life in terms of what you want to do.
Yeah, totally. Is hiring a general contractor, is that definitely the way to go, or should you ever kind of do it yourself and just, watch YouTube videos?
It really depends. It depends on how skilled you are. So for myself, all during college, I worked doing general contracting and construction. So I learned every trade that's out there. So when I started flipping, I could do my own plumbing, my own electrical, sheetrocking, taping, the compound, painting. So I could do everything soup to nuts. So if you're able to do that, great. If not, find some cheap labor. I mean, it just depends on your skill level. Because it's the one thing is, and certainly like if you're doing anything that requires permits, if you're just doing cosmetics, that's one thing. But if you're going to do things in the house that involve permits and like electrical work or anything structural, yeah, then you definitely want to use a general contractor unless you're able to do it yourself.
Yeah. What's one room in the house that you would say, let's say you have a couple, a couple and the two kids, and they have like $14,000 extra in cash sitting there. What would be one room in the house you think that they could focus on to increase the equity in their house pretty easily? Well,
overall, I mean, the simple answer with that is the areas of the house that you will increase the value the most are kitchens and bathrooms.
Okay.
So no doubt, no question with that. So
gotcha. Kitchen,
kitchen and bathrooms, and the thing with all of that is you can do so. Like if you get involved in flipping, a lot of times you can buy a house that just really needs some just cosmetic work. So I did a flip once where basically I just went in, I painted the cabinets. The cabinets were in okay shape, the kitchen cabinets. I painted the cabinets. The bathrooms were like, I think the tile was from like 1970s. It was like, yellow and green and all that. And I found a company that would refinish ceramic tile. Basically, they come in and they spray it. And by the time, without ripping everything out, by the time I was done, the bathroom looked brand new. All the tile was white, the tub was white, and this was just a finish that they put on.
Oh, nice.
Almost like painting it, but it's a particular type of paint. So there's many ways to do it, and at all different price points.
That's really good info. By the way, we're gonna cancel AKM really quick, just FYI. We'll get that canceled. We might fade Snap. Did you check any trades today, Steven?
Yeah, I didn't. I've been watching a lot of stuff. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at Apple right now. Is right on the 200.
Gotcha.
Came down. When I was putting in the chat about taking Apple, doing the put sale.
Yeah.
At the time, I was watching the 5-minute chart, and it looked like it was going to keep coming down. So I'm just sitting tight on that idea, just to see what it does around the 200 here.
Sure. So since we're here, we're talking about trading. Kind of, what's your trading style?
Good question. So I started out I mean, I don't know if you want how far back you want to go with
however far you want, man. Totally up to you.
So because like you and I have, I mean, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people have similar stories in terms of when they first got started and how much money they lost.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I was right there with you. I mean, so if you want to just, I'll quickly jump back to like 2000. And as a matter of fact, when I knew that I was going to get on the mic with you today, I hang on to these. I've got my statements from 2000 and 2001 of all the buying I was doing at the time. And
wow.
you have these companies, i2 Technologies, Kana Software, NextPrize, Siebel Systems, Oracle. I mean, you name it. I was buying tech companies. This was during the internet bubble, before it burst. I was buying tech companies like crazy. And this was like my final 1 or 2 years of in corporate. I was making a lot of money. You know, I had a lot of extra money to play with, and I just started buying tech like crazy because at the time I was working for a company and all my clients were these tech companies. So they were my clients. You know, I saw what their stocks were doing, and, you know, I would go in and you know, one day and put an order in and sell it the next day and make several $1,000s, like $15,000, no problem.
Sure.
And I was just doing this over and over, like just insane amounts of buying of these tech companies. And to the point where, so it looked like I probably put in about 160,000 into, you know, of purchases between 2000 and 2001, and never sold any of it. I let it ride all the way up, probably got up to about 250, you know, or so. Mm-hmm. And then of course the bubble then burst and all the prices started coming down, and all of my tech clients kept saying, oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's just a correction. You know, we're good. We're solid. Our stock is just going to keep going up. Well, it didn't go up.
Yeah.
And it just kept going down, and I got crushed. And then, so I decided to just sit on it. I was like, okay, well, it's not a loss until I sell it. So I decided to just sit on all these, you know, all these shares that I had from all these companies. And so this was 2000, 2001. And then like 4 years later, when I had my own business, and I wasn't doing anything with these shares. They were just sitting out there. And I had my own business, and I was busy with my business. I wasn't trading, and my, you know, quote unquote financial advisor at the time said, you know what, you should really just, you know, these are never coming back. You should unload them. Just take the loss, and at least you can, whatever money you get out of selling it, you can use for your business. And at the time I was like, well, I don't really need the money for the business. I mean, business is doing fine. And, you know, and this is all just stuff that just kind of, you know, out of sight, out of mind. And if I just leave it, eventually it will come back someday. Anyway, the guy just kept pushing. And so finally I agreed to sell it. So to take a loss. And I was looking at this between 2004 and 2005, I took about a realized loss of about 100 and sorry, I'm looking at these numbers. About $132,000 realized loss.
Huge.
And, you know, looking back now, and it still angers me, because the key takeaway from this is, just because somebody has a license and a designation doesn't know they know anything.
Right.
It's because had I known then what I know now, like for instance, covered calls. He never mentioned anything to me about doing I could have been doing covered calls all of these years on these stocks. Yeah. And, you know, and a lot of them did come back. I mean, you know, between Oracle and some of the other, you know, big name companies, they did come back.
Yeah.
But, you know, this guy was just like, yeah, they're never coming back. Just sell them. Just take the loss, and, you know, you can carry the loss over each year.
I mean, so $3,000, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, well, right. So that $3,000 is going to carry basically until the day I die. I mean, taking, you know, so
sure.
Anyway, but it's just, again, key takeaway is don't think that just because somebody has a designation like financial advisor or certified whatever doesn't mean anything, because the only person who's got your best interest in mind is you. And do your own research. Don't rely on somebody else.
Very, very true. Very true.
I mean, hard lesson to learn. And all these years later, I look back and think about what I could have done with that stock had I known. But
yeah, I tell you, I understand, man. So I mean, going forward now, do you find yourself more of a swing trader, day trader, long term? What's your kind of your approach?
I am. So when I started trading, so what happened was after 2008, when the bottom fell out of the market and the mortgage crisis and all that, my business took a huge nosedive. So at the time, my business was always focused on kind of high-end luxury type clients. And at first, when the economy started going down the toilet, it didn't affect me because my clients weren't the type of people who were really affected at first.
Yeah.
But then, a year after it started, that's when people started really tightening it up and not spending money like they were. So my business just, within 1 year, I went from well over $1 million in revenue down to 500,000.
Right.
And it was just, and just because of the type of clientele and nobody was spending money. So I decided time to reinvent myself. I've got to find, I can keep doing what I'm doing, but at the same time, what is there out there that I can do that I can start making money at immediately, that will serve me for the rest of my life, the knowledge that I acquire and the skills that I gain. What's out there that I can then apply to the rest of my life, even into my 80s and 90s if I make it that long. So I came back to trading, and it was kind of by mistake. I read an article about, this was when it was the marijuana boom. And I read this article about all of these people making just tons of money on these weed stocks. And that's when I clicked. I'm like, yeah, why don't I just get back into trading? I mean, I've been out of it for so long.
Yeah.
And so I just decided that I would start educating myself again on trading. So, between when I started 3 years ago and back in 2000, obviously a huge difference in terms of the technology and what was available to you. So I started out initially trying to day trade, and I got crushed. I was doing all the stupid things. I was buying high and when I shouldn't have, and I was selling at the bottom. And, I was making all the newbie mistakes. And then I came across your website and yours and Clay's. We've talked about Clay before, and that's between you and Clay. That's really when I developed the foundation for the trading. And so I stuck to day trading for a while, and that was okay. But then, given my schedule, and I couldn't sit in front of the computer day in and day out, I decided to give swing trading a shot. So I started swing trading, and that worked out really well for a while. And then we had that flash crash that one summer, a few summers ago. Yeah. And then after that, all the market volatility, it wasn't a great time to swing trade. And because it was just whipsaw. I would enter into a trade, it would go my direction for a day or two, and then I would get stopped out. I'm sorry, hang on one second. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay, sorry. All of a sudden, I was getting a message on my answering machine. So I then went from. So I was swing trading, and I was getting stopped out constantly, and so I decided, okay, well, maybe it's a good time to go back to day trading. And I kind of figured, I was day trading, and I really hadn't perfected it. And then I went to swing trading, and I guess I started thinking, well, how can I really be a successful swing trader if I haven't really perfected day trading yet?
Right.
So I then went back to day trading, and I've been heavily focused on that for the last, I guess, maybe year and a half. And recently, I not that I ever gave up swing trading, but it was really just on the back burner. But recently, I've gotten back into the swing trading as well.
Gotcha. So tell people a little bit about the website that you built and why you built it and what the purpose of it is.
So one of the things that I had encountered as a newbie was, realizing that there are so many people out there that just want to sell you everything there is, that there's the concept of the Holy Grail that all newbies buy into, but that it doesn't exist, and everybody wants to sell it to you. And there are more of these people out there than you can count. I mean, that will gladly take your money, give you training and education that really doesn't advance your skill level. And at the end, you just keep paying out money over and over and over for whether they're the education, videos, or if it's indicators that people have, these proprietary indicators that people claim to have developed that are, again, the Holy Grail. So I decided to start the website that you pulled up there, Stock Trader's Journey, just to be a resource for new traders, to help them avoid the pitfalls and to help them avoid, spending the money unnecessarily on all these things that aren't going to help them. And the idea behind it was to create unbiased reviews of people like yourself, of the trading educators, of software, anything related to trading. The idea was to do these unbiased reviews so that people could read them and try to avoid making the same mistakes. And all of the reviews that I've done were based on personal experience. So when I started this, I didn't want to do reviews on things that I personally hadn't tried or been in contact with. Right. So everything that I've reviewed are actual is based on personal experience. Right. Which I think is important. And I really got into it at first, and I was doing really well until I got threatened with a bunch of lawsuits. So it's amazing. You catch people doing stuff, and you call them out, and next thing you know, you're getting letters from lawyers threatening these lawsuits. And quite frankly, it's not a revenue generating site. So you got to ask yourself, am I willing to put myself and my family, our financial situation at risk for this, or do I want to just back off?
I know. So, isn't that crazy, man? You won't mention any names, but that's wild that occurred. I know me and you shared that story, but people are hellacious when you try to call them out and let them know what's going on, and behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you catch them, I mean, it's just so blatant, and you catch them, and it's like, you could go to court and you have to sit in front of a judge, and that the judge is going to rule in your favor. But how much is that going to cost you?
Yeah, and is it worth it? Exactly. Yeah, you're totally right. But I mean, going through that whole process and starting the website and going through the reviews, what would you say to a brand new trader? Let's talk like trading psychology, because you're really good at that. You love like introspective thinking. What's one of the biggest hurdles that you think new traders probably have?
Well, there's several, but I think one of the biggest ones, obviously, is being willing to take a loss, and not let that get to you psychologically. To be able to take a loss and just chalk it up as that, just a loss, and that was a big struggle for me, because when I first started trading several years ago, I didn't understand. I wasn't doing it with the R concept. I didn't know about that at the time. That wasn't until I found you. Mm-hmm. I was day trading, and I was just throwing out size of share sizes of 100, 200, 300, 400, whatever it was, right. And without a real idea of, well, I knew I had to have a stop loss, but that stop loss, if it's 500 shares, even if it's a tight stop, could be several $100s.
Yeah, totally.
So that was a I think a big thing that I had to get over was, and that's where you really helped me, was understanding that R concept and how valuable that is. So to your point, the point that you make, which is don't think of it as money, it's an R. It's just a thing. It's not really, don't think of it as a dollar amount. It's just a unit of measurement.
Yeah.
And so I think that using the R system and then just thinking about it as just a unit of measure and taking a loss for what it is, which is you were wrong, which happens all the time,
mm-hmm.
and then move on to the next trade and don't think about it.
Yeah. It's so tough though, man, that admitting that you're wrong, it's a big challenge. Why do you think that is? The admitting someone's wrong. Why do you think just in our history of humans that's not something that we're comfortable with?
Well, I think that a lot of us, I think most of us from a young age, I mean, especially if you're involved in sports, like you're geared towards winning.
Mm-hmm.
And, and there's, well, I shouldn't say today because today they're very politically correct about winners and losers. But, back when I was a kid, it was like, look, you either won or you lost. And nobody got an award for participating. Sure. It was, and in the stock market, you're either winning or you're losing. Mm-hmm. And so losing, I think, is hard to accept because, you're not only you're losing money, but mentally, you didn't do what you've been trained to do your entire life, which is win.
Yeah. Yep. I think you're right. It comes from training. It comes from just previous backgrounds because you're not used to losing constantly. Like when you do lose, maybe it's ever so often, but I had a friend so I play in a rec league softball team and I play with a bunch of artists, like not musicians,
mm-hmm.
I'm a national. Right. And so we're playing, and these guys are like musicians that tour the country. One's the lead singer of the Queen Experience. A few others do, guitar and just big shows. And when we're playing in this rec league softball team, which a few traders actually have come and, when they come down to Nashville during that time, we always go and we watch the game. But there's this one guy, I was at the Super Bowl, Sunday, and he's mentioned that he's going to play again this year, but it might be his last year because we're terrible. And he hates being on a losing team because I think we went 2-16 last season.
Right.
But it's just that loss where I don't care because I know what it is going into it. It's like I'm not a good softball player, and we're playing against people who legitimately really take this seriously.
Right.
Going back to that extent of we are trained not to want to lose. And that's, by the way, that's fine in competition. That's all right because it's a very easy sum game. You didn't lose anything other than the feeling of you losing. That's
right.
Why in the market it's a little bit worse because not only are you wrong, but you literally lost money doing it.
Right.
And
right.
Most athletes, you don't, if you're going to go play a soccer team and you're in high school or whatever, you have to pay some money, but not thousands to be on a soccer team. Your parents might.
Right.
But.
Right. So a loss is just a loss.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. There's no other repercussions. So it's
right.
No one still likes that feeling. It's we're bred to not like it. That's what's funny is a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners like yourself. They've always told me if you're going to fail a bunch of times, just do it as small as possible because at some point you're going to have to get a winner, and
right.
if it's big enough, it'll make up for all the losses.
Well, it's just like in sales. So. When I was in the corporate world, I was in sales, and the thing with sales is it really helps you to accept the word no because you mm-hmm. hear it all the time, mm-hmm. and if you can't accept a no when you're in sales, then you got to find a different profession because that you're going to hear more no's than you do yeses, but they always teach you that the more no's you get, the closer you are to a yes. And it's the same as in trading. And the more losses you have, the closest you are to a winner. And as long as your losses are small, and you teach us all the time, keep your losses small and make as much as you can on your winners, and you'll be profitable.
Bingo. You're totally right, man. Absolutely right. There's actually a question while we're chatting that popped in here about. Let me read this question for you. It's kind of like back to the real estate thing. If you're in an area which allows a home business, if you have a daylight basement, converting the basement to a home office can be very profitable because of insurance agents and accountants search for good locations where they can work from their homes. Do you ever do those type of conversions?
As a matter of fact, you've been to my house. I'm sitting in my basement office right now.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
So without a doubt, because we've had a realtor in here recently to just to evaluate our house and give us, we consider, there was a house that we fell in love with that we saw that we wanted to buy, and it needed a complete renovation, but my wife was up for it because it was this really cool mid-century modern home. We ended up not getting it, but when we had the realtor over to our house for her to come and look at the house so that we could get an appraisal and some numbers, the one room she fell in love with is my office. It's a basement office. I've got a couple windows that look at that I can actually see outside.
Yeah.
So I've got light coming in. So it's not. I don't feel like I'm in a dungeon. I feel like I'm in a really cool room. I've got I've got a bunch of guitars on the wall. I've got my monitors. I've got a sofa, and I think that this kind of a room is a great thing to consider if you're doing some type of a renovation, because it's like a bonus room. She walked in here, she's like, "Oh my God, this is awesome."
It is, yeah. Bonus rooms are, man, they're solid. That's what I mean when you're converting something into an office and it's like your spare office / bonus room. Yeah, I think you're totally right. You did a great job on that, by the way, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
What's your work schedule like, man? I mean, that's, again, I'm always asking people, like, how do you prioritize all of your time? Because you have a busy life, and I was up there. I lived with you for like a week,
right?
And I saw your schedule. But tell other people, like, what's kind of your daily grind and your routine, and how do you get everything done?
So I'm usually up by 6 o'clock in the morning. So my wife gets up before I do, but my alarm is typically set for 6. I'm oftentimes awake long before it goes off. Yeah. So I'm up by 6. I get up. I have to. I get up. I get my coffee. I make my daughter's lunch. I do everything I need to do prep wise before she gets up in the morning. So I usually wake her up about 6:45, 7 o'clock. Then I've got to get her fed. I've got to get her dressed, get her out the door. I've got to get her to the bus by by 7:45. Mm-hmm. So I get her on the bus at 7:45. I'm typically back in the bus usually late. So I'm back in my house, in my office by 8 o'clock. I turn my computer on. I pull up my screens. I start going through the gap list that I've my scanners.
Sure.
So I'll kind of do between like 8 o'clock and 8:15 or so. I'll just quickly scan the market to see what's gapping, because at that time there may or may not be a lot of volume on some of them. So I'll do a quick scan and just get an idea of what I'm going to be looking at. Then I go and I grab breakfast, and then I'm typically back in my office by 8:30. And these are the days that I actually do trade. If I'm not trading, I've got to be at a job site. But I'm typically back in my office by 8:30, and then I am coming up with my watch list. I'm putting all my lines on the charts of the ones that I'm going to be watching, and then I'm logging in with you at 9 a.m. and then I trade, and then 11:30 is typically my hard stop. If I'm not, one of my rules is if I'm not in a trade by 11:30, I don't take it. So if I'm in a trade by 11:30, that's fine. If 11:30 hits and I'm not in one yet, I won't take it. Okay. And the reason for that for me is, I don't like taking trades during lunchtime. I think it's too choppy. Not that they can't and don't work, but for me, I like the idea of not being in a trade during the choppiness of lunchtime. Mm-hmm. So if I'm in a trade, fine, I'll stick around and I'll stay in it. If I'm not, 11:30, I walk away from my computer. I go to the gym. I'm typically back at my desk by 1 when you get back on the mic or on the mic.
Yeah.
And then I'll look for something for the afternoon, and then I've got to get my daughter typically either from school by 3:15 or off the bus by 3:45.
Gotcha. When do you do the gym and all that time?
So 11:30. When I at 11:30, if I'm not in the trade, I leave and go to the gym.
Gotcha.
So between 11:30 and 1, that's my gym time, and then I'm typically back by around 1 o'clock, and I'm back at my computer.
Do you think everyone should schedule some type of like gym or workout routine in their daily normal lives?
Absolutely, without question. I think it is so important, especially just to get away from the screens for a period of time. Get your head clear. I mean, there's the obvious benefits in terms of exercise and all that, but I think just to clear your head, just to get away and stop looking at the screens for a while is key.
So I want to try to start coming up with a question that I ask everybody, and this is probably going to morph over time, but you're just going to be the first person I'm going to do it with. I want to create a question that is just kind of an off-the-wall question, but I heard it from another podcast person. I really liked it. I'm just going to try it out for a few while, see how it goes.
Okay.
What's the best purchase you've ever made in your entire life under $100?
Best purchase my entire life under $100.
Yeah. I'll let you think. I think you can think about it because it's definitely questions like whoever asked that, but because I had to think about it the other day too. But I have my answer. I'll tell you mine after you tell me yours.
It's a great I'll tell you, this is just a knee-jerk reaction. Okay. It's the first thing that came to mind, but it's not. I really have to think about what is the best thing that I purchased. Sure. I'll tell you one thing that we get an awful lot of use out of that was $99 that my wife and I use it. My daughter uses it. It's entertainment. Which is Apple TV.
Yeah, Apple TV for $100. That's a good. Trust me, man. I have one of those too. I think that's a great purchase.
It's
you buy it once, plug it into your computer or TV or whatever, and it boom, you're off to the races.
I think if I had to now, is it a one-time $100?
Yeah,
$100
just a one-time purchase. Yep.
Okay, because I do have the other thing that just came to mind is when my daughter was born, we did a thing called the cord blood registry, and we actually froze some of her DNA and all that.
Oh wow!
Anyway, it's I don't know if they took it from the placenta or whatever it was that they do. It's sitting in someplace in San Francisco. So in the future, if she ever had some type of disease that she needed, some of her original stuff, they have it.
Wow.
And that's $100 a year that I pay.
Gotcha.
And so that's a reoccurring $100.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before. Mine, I might be kind of breaking the rules a little bit, but mine was the TSA pre-check.
Okay, yeah.
It was like $125 or something. I was right at it. One-time payment for 5 years, dude.
Which is great.
Life-changing.
Not to have to sit in those lines, that's worth it right there.
Dude, for once you do it one time, even if you fly once a year, it's worth it. Like it is classic for sure. Right on, dude. Okay, heck yeah. I appreciate the answer. Let's I'll try to see if I can squeeze that one into each interview.
So here's a question for you. Here's a question for you. Okay. So is that a question that you want to give them ahead of time to think about, or you just want it off the cuff?
Off the cuff, yeah. I think.
Okay, all right. It's a hard question to answer.
It is. Most of my podcast that I do, I only script very, very, very few portions of like the beginning and the end, and everything in the middle is just
you're just winging it.
Just winging it because I like the conversational flow, and I really want to get what people's answers are. And you'll get people who stumble and say but and ums a lot, but that's okay. That's it happens, not a problem.
Yeah, or
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll tell you this. There was and hopefully I'm not doing it in this one, but I think I told you that I was interviewed by Clay once.
Yeah.
And the number of times I didn't realize I was doing it. And I said, so many times that they created a drinking game. So if you listen to the podcast, every time I said, you had to drink.
No, I don't think you've been saying that in this one. I usually catch on to people's the middle word that they use for a buffer.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep it down.
That is funny. That is very, very funny. What's the other flaw that you have, Steven? Do you have any others?
Oh, I've got lots of flaws. Yeah. where do you want to start?
We only have like 20 minutes left. What's well, I don't know, just personality wise, what's something that you wouldn't want to pass down to your kids or something? Like, what's a flaw that you feel like you've been working on for a while? I know one of mine. I'll tell you one of mine.
Well, and I'm going to say it, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's a cop out. That's not really a flaw," but it is for people who who have this issue, which is I have been my entire life a complete perfectionist, and like to the point where, give you an idea, I redid our master bedroom upstairs, and there was one area where I wasn't happy with the way it came out, and I thought, okay, well, I can just touch this up, no problem. And instead of just leaving it alone, and 99.9 people out of 100, if they walked in that room, would never have noticed it. It drove me nuts. I had to mess with it. I had to, try to fix it, and I made it 10 times worse than it was.
Okay.
And so that kind of level of perfection, where I don't think it's bad to be a perfectionist to a certain degree, but there are times when you just have to be able to say it's good enough. And my good friend, one of my good friends, our place up in Canada, my neighbor up there is the one years ago who started working on me regarding this issue, because he would be over at the house as I'm doing work on the cottage, and he could see just how I just couldn't, if something just wasn't absolutely perfect, I had to keep messing with it and tinkering with it, and he would just look at me and say, you know what, it's fine. I'm like, no, I've got it. He goes, hey, a blind man would love to see it.
Oh, big. That's big. Wow.
And so my friend Jeff turned me on to that saying, and I remind myself of it all the time now, which is a blind man would love to see it. And I'm like, you know what? It's good enough.
That's huge. Because that was my question. I was like, how do you get over that? And I guess that would be an answer to that.
Yeah, you just have to just catch yourself at times and go, you know what? How much better is anybody else going to notice this, or is it just me?
Big.
Huge takeaway. And if it's just me, I just got to let it go.
Huge takeaway. And Pat wrote into the chat pane talking about that in relation to trading. That also can be a huge stress in trading, because trading is an art more than science. And a lot of people do try to make it very precise, very complex, very,
right.
This is it. This is how it works. And I would love to tell people, yeah, you could just have this one approach. There's only a few absolute certainties in the market. There's very, very few. And you could say one of those is the market will always change. I mean, that's a dumb one, though. There's very, very few ones, but most of them come down to math, right? Where you buy something at 2 and you sell it at 10, you'll always make money. And that's just a math concept, because it can only go to 0. But there are very few absolutes in trading. And since there are very few absolutes, there's huge, innumerable amount of variables out there. And for perfectionists, that can drive them crazy, because not only are there endless variables, but those variables are always changing. And who knows where and why and when, and no one has an answer, and it just stresses a lot of perfectionists out. And it is a bad trade to an extent. I mean, it has its pros and it has its cons, because the pros are, dude, I could come up to your house right now, spill some spaghetti on the floor, and I would just eat it off the floor. There'd be no need for it. I would just, all right, no plate needed. That's the pro. And the con, like you mentioned, is sometimes it just stresses you out and stresses other people out to a whole other level. Because I'm the exact opposite, which is, again, pro and a con. I have some people go, man, I wish I had your nonsense of caring. Because I do something once and like, all right, it's good enough. Let's go on. Which again,
Right.
pros and cons. Like you would hate to have me on your job site because I would do something once and I'll walk away. That would be it. You'd say, Newsom, you haven't even like started to get this right, kind of thing. And yeah, it's a big challenge, but I appreciate bringing that up. And how would you relate that to trading? What would be a way for, since we're asking you personally, if someone's a perfectionist and they know that, let's say OCD, or they're very focused on coming up with an exact solution to their trading, what would be a way for them to overcome that?
Well, I think for me, I think it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because if I can control it, the good part of that is that it helps me to stick to rules and to stick to a plan. Now, where I need to remind myself that, it is more of an art than a science, trading, that it's fluid. And yes, you have to have a hard set of rules, but you also need to be flexible enough to adjust and adjust in real time. And one of the things that drove me nuts early on, and that I don't allow to happen as much as I can now, which is, I would enter a trade and I would be up, I would be profitable, and I would see an area where, I don't know, maybe an area of resistance or support that I should have been more conscious of, or I should have just looked at more closely. And then I would have said, well, no, I've got 2R, and 2R is where I'm going. And then all of a sudden it would hit this level and then turn around, and I would, what had been a winning trade would become a losing trade. And drove me nuts that I would look at and see that I was profitable, and all of a sudden I was losing money.
Oh,
so
man, worst.
So that's one area where I have allowed myself the flexibility to make a decision. Like if I see, because I always have level 2s up. I'm using level 2s, and I also I'm probably one of the few people who within your group that uses the volume profile.
Yeah.
So as I'm once I'm in a trade, once I get into a trade, I've got a screen I've got my 1-minute chart, 5-minute chart, 15-minute chart. They're all right there. I've got my level 2s. I'm looking at it right now as I'm talking. I've got news, and then I've got the volume profile on my 5-minute chart. So as I'm watching, once I'm in the trade, I'm watching that. And if I come to a level that I know, like if let's say I'm going short, and if I come to a level that I know is going to be, that looks like it could be a support level, strong support level, I will watch that closely. I'll watch the level 2s. And if I see it struggling to continue lower, I have no problem closing the trade, taking the profit. Yeah, and again, this all assumes that I am profitable at that point. Mm-hmm. Closing the trade, taking a profit, and then re-entering on the bounce, because it's staring me right in the face. And if it struggled to get through that level once before and it bounced, then it's likely to bounce again. Mm-hmm. So sometimes and again, sometimes I'll exit a trade and take the profit, and then it will just plummet. It happens, but I would say more times than not, it does exactly what I think it's going to do, and it bounces off that level, and then I just re-enter.
Totally. Very, very, very valid point. You're a music guy. Would you say that there's anything as such as a perfect song?
A perfect song?
Yeah.
In terms of
just perfectly composed, perfectly written, brings the mood every single time, whatever that mood is, just always flawless.
You mean, do they exist out there?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think so.
Do you have any songs that you would say are perfect, that you just, to you you're a musician, just something that is, this is the best song, this is perfect in every way?
Well, I being put on the spot, I'm trying to come up with something off the top of my head, but like, who doesn't love Freebird?
Oh, Freebird! Right? Who doesn't love Freebird?
Who doesn't love a lot of the Beatles tunes?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I think they're few and far between, but I think there are those songs, some of those songs that are just, they're perfect.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree.
In every way.
I agree. And so one of the reason I was asking about that is because I had a really interesting conversation with another musician here in Nashville, and he brought something to me that I have never thought of before. I'll share it with you. It was about, and I was, Mozart and Beethoven, and how most people argue that the vast majority of their collections too could be considered just perfectly constructed, phenomenal in every way. And to think about how much time they probably put into that. And I asked them, I was like, how long do you think Mozart just spent obsessing over this, symphony number, or Beethoven, their symphonies, like Requiem, how long do you think that took to compose? And he gave me an answer, blew me away. Yeah.
10 minutes.
Like, he was probably under a time constraint because he had to sell this symphony to the theater or the orchestra or whatever it was. And he had a boss, and his boss said, get this done by Saturday. And he just slammed a bunch of vodka and then made it happen,
Right.
And he said, this is good enough. And he can probably, right, people who create those musical arts could probably say this was wrong and I need to tweak this, I could have tweaked that. But at some extent, you also have to think about who's on the other side appreciating that work. Like you mentioned, a blind man would love to see this, or someone who's not profitable would love to be in your position of profits. So just go ahead and take the trade. It's good enough kind of thing. That is a very good balance that you bring to the table, that even though you can have different perspectives, but just like you mentioned, man, some of the greatest works of art could have been done in minutes or hours, and we would have think that it might have taken a lifetime.
And they don't. And it's interesting because I also have a lot of friends who are musicians, and some of their greatest songs were, they just sat down and just wrote them out in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It may have taken a little bit longer to, put together the entire composition, but basically, the lyrics, sitting down and writing the lyric, grabbing a guitar and just doing a couple chords and writing down the lyrics, and boom, they've got a great song.
Isn't that incredible? That's an amazing thing to me, especially because I don't understand the concept of music. I just can't produce music. That just can't happen. So I don't even understand how that's feasible, but I love the appreciation of it because my art is trading, and it's one of those things too, where I pull up a chart, I see it, I feel it, I get everything. I love it. And just like some artists might obsess over a song, kind of consider that if trading is your art, if this is your craft, if this is your profession, there will be times where it's okay to look at a trade, know within 2 to 5 minutes or 10 minutes that this is what you need to do, and take that trade. And if you're obsessing about something too long, walk away, come back to it, and have someone else help you with it, as most musicians do. If they get stuck on writer's block or something, they have other people in, say, hey, help me with this. Let's mix it up a little bit, mix up our brain waves, and figure out what we can create.
Yeah, and for me, like with taking profit, sometimes, I mean, maybe sometimes, or some people might look at it and say, okay, maybe I'm a little too aggressive with my profit taking. But the greatest month that I had, I wasn't scalping, but I also wasn't holding out for 2R every time. And I was seeing levels that I thought that price was gonna have a hard time getting through, and I was just banking my profit. And and I think it's, whenever I do take a trade, I am always looking for trying to find that trade that offers a minimum of a 2 to 3 times reward versus risk.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that it has to get to that level for me to exit the trade.
Yeah.
And case in point, and I this was more luck than anything else. So 2 days ago with Apple, you and I were texting. I had to be in New Jersey. Remember, I had to go to New Jersey for a job site. I've been waiting all this time to get into Apple for a long-term play, and that was and this is I guess goes back to being flexible and being a little fluid and being able to adjust on the fly. So I was looking to get into Apple for a long-term play. And I said that to you, and I had 2 levels that I specified. One was the 200, and the other level was 155.
Yep.
So Sunday night, you and I were texting. I put 2 orders in Sunday night, good till canceled. One was a 50 share buy at the 50. I'm sorry, at the 200, and then the other 50 share buy order was at 155. So Monday morning, I drive to New Jersey. I'm at the job site by like 7:30 in the morning. I'm working. I'm not even really paying attention. All of a sudden, boom! I see. I get a text from Interactive Brokers saying I'm filled on Apple. So it came down. It hit my it hit my entry right at the open. So I'm in right off the open.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh, cool. Okay. Well, I've got 50 shares of now. I just need to fill the other 50 at 155. Mm-hmm. So I don't even look at it. I'm busy. I'm doing stuff. And at some point, I went out to my truck to get something. It's like, maybe I'll check the markets to see what's going on. And then I saw how much the general markets were down as a whole. And I was like, wow, this is ugly. And then I happened to look at my Apple position, and I was up $4. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Market's down so much. Apple, I'm up $4. I'm like, I know this was supposed to be a long-term play. I'm taking the profit.
Sure.
And I was on my phone. I just hit close position right there, and I made like, 8R.
Yep.
With that one trade.
Yep.
And I was okay with that.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, looking at it, that was the right call because I got in at market open. I got out right about near the high of the day, and then it completely rolled over the rest of the day.
Yep. And you bought more at 150. Did you get more at 155 yesterday?
And then 155. That was the second order.
Beautiful, dude. Great job, man. Like I said, you're absolutely right. That fluidity is really important. And having the plan and the trading the plan is most important before the trade happens. Once you're in the trade, and you have do you have the rules that allow you to be fluid? You can build those out because as a perfectionist, you probably should have rules allowing you to get in and get out early, right?
Right.
As someone like me who is perfection, I don't care. I need that more structure because
right.
otherwise I'm gonna be too just haphazard with it. And so I think you're absolutely right. You take your weaknesses and build rules around that, and it helps you get out of your comfort zone so that you're allowed to be more fluid and more. Hey, I'm just going to go with the chart, go with the flow, because that's the point of charting. I think that's a beautiful takeaway.
Yeah, and that day, if I had looked at that and said, okay, the markets are weak, Apple has had a nice bullish run, even with the bearishness of the market. This was supposed to be a long-term play. I'm holding it for a long-term play.
Mm-hmm.
I would have, by the end of the day, I would have been losing a lot of money. Yep. So that was my justification at the time. I had a feeling, and sometimes I just got to go with my gut feeling. My gut feeling told me Apple's going to roll over because the rest of the market is.
Yeah, no, that's dude. Like being able to listen to your internals and your instincts on the fly like that. It true skill to acquire for sure, dude. That was a solid hour. I don't know how that went by so quickly. Amazing.
That was fun.
Amazing. Thank you, man. And me and
I'm glad I could be on the bench for you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going.
I realized I wasn't the starting pitcher, but it was nice that you put me in the game.
That's right, baby. That's right. Well, we had scheduled before, but you're a busy man, dude. You got a lot of stuff going on, so it makes sense. I'm glad we can make this happen. That's usually
I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you for an hour.
Likewise, dude. Likewise. We're going to chat again this weekend because we do need to talk about our August plans that we have.
Yeah, I think that would be phenomenal. That would be a great time.
Will do. Love you, man. Thanks so much for being here.
Love you too. I appreciate it. Such an honor to be on here with you. And I will, I guess it's coming up on 2, so you'll be gone today, but I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, man. See you.
All right. Take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's the man, the myth, the legend, Stephen King. Always an honor to talk to you guys and learn more about your trading, learn more about who you are people, your skills, your benefits. And again, I love learning about each and every one of you and just figuring out how we can all improve together as traders. I'm done for the day. No day trades for me. Just waiting it out. We'll see what happens. We did get filled on MU. So let's see if this little sucker can bounce off that 100. And if you guys want to keep chatting in Slack, feel free to. Otherwise, I'm Audi 5000. I'll see you all tomorrow in the morning room as well. And of course, Latoya will be rocking out the morning room tomorrow. I'll be here for Energy Wednesday from 5 to 6. Also have the stock review coming up. So yeah, today, this afternoon from 5 to 6 Eastern Standard. You guys are amazing. And until then, remember, love life, live life, and trade it. Bye.